The darkness pressed against Logan Kane's eyelids, cold and suffocating. Metallic restraints bit into his wrists and ankles, their energy fields humming faintly as if savoring his helplessness. The sharp tang of ozone lingered in the air, mixing with the sterile, clinical scent of an alien prison. His head throbbed from the beating he'd taken, but pain was familiar. Pain was a companion. It meant he was still alive. He tested his bonds. The energy cuffs crackled, sending a lance of searing agony up his arms. Logan gritted his teeth, his body tensing, but refusing to give them the satisfaction of a scream. His pulse, steady and controlled, thrummed in his ears. SEAL training had forged his body into a weapon, but something far older and darker lay beneath his skin. Something even he struggled to contain. The heavy hiss of a door sliding open broke the silence. A tall figure entered, his armor an obsidian carapace etched with glowing crimson veins. The air seemed to chill around him, his presence oppressive and absolute. Logan recognized him instantly from intercepted briefings. Commander Vorthak, the Empire's enforcer, infamous for extracting information from even the most resolute prisoners. Vorthak's voice was a serrated whisper, smooth and venomous. "Logan Kane, your species shows remarkable defiance, but your resistance is meaningless. Your squad is gone, your ship destroyed. Only you remain. Tell me, how did such a fragile creature survive my soldiers?" Logan lifted his battered face, blood trailing from a gash above his brow. His lips curled into a defiant smirk. "Fragile? You've got no idea what you're dealing with." His voice was rough but steady, each word dripping with contempt. The commander's eyes, twin embers beneath his armored helm, flickered with amusement. "Is that so? We shall see." He gestured with two clawed fingers, and the walls around Logan came alive with arcs of electric current. White-hot pain lanced through his body, every nerve screaming. His muscles seized, his back arching against the restraints. His mouth opened in a silent snarl, but he refused to cry out. The agony ceased, leaving the air thick with the scent of scorched flesh. Logan's chest heaved, his skin glistening with sweat. His heartbeat, slow and powerful, pounded beneath his ribs. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as his body worked to repair the damage. Wounds closed, tissue knit, and the deep bruises began to fade unnaturally fast. Vorthak's eyes narrowed in intrigue. "A curious anomaly," Vorthak mused, his tone laced with suspicion. "Your physiology defies expectation. Your kind should break, but you—" He paused, scanning Logan with a device that flashed unreadable glyphs. "You are something else." Logan felt the heat of his blood rising, the primal force within stirring, restless and hungry. His fingers twitched, nails thickening for a fleeting instant before he suppressed it. Not yet. Not here. If they knew, they'd unleash hell to contain him. Let them think he was only human, until it was too late. The commander's gauntlet flared, and the air grew heavy. "I admire your endurance, Kane. Let us test its limits." A new torment began. A web of microscopic needles extended from the cuffs, piercing his skin and delivering an invasive neural assault. Memories flashed, vivid and raw. Childhood storms, the cold steel of his first rifle, the burning desert sand on his lips, the screams of men he could not save. His mind swam through the worst moments of his life, each twisted and magnified to break his spirit. But Logan Kane had been forged in the crucible of war. His mind was a fortress. He twisted his agony into a weapon, feeding the burning wrath that simmered beneath his bones. Through gritted teeth he rasped, "You're wasting. Your time." The needles retracted, and the cuffs powered down. Vorthak tilted his head, more curious than frustrated. "You are exceptional, but I do not need you whole. Only compliant." He raised a clawed hand, and a translucent sphere emerged, pulsing with liquid light. "This will strip you layer by layer, mind, soul, and whatever anomaly lurks within your flesh. Shall we begin?" The orb drifted closer, its hum resonating in Logan's chest, scraping against something primal and ancient inside him. His muscles bunched, his breath shallow but controlled. The wolf within, an ever-present shadow, stirred violently, tasting the threat, begging for release. Vorthak paused, his predatory gaze sharpening. "You are hiding something?" Logan's eyes flared briefly, an amber, bestial glint that vanished as quickly as it came. His lips, cracked and bloodied, twisted into a wicked grin. "You have no idea what you're waking up." The air around him shifted, pressure building in the small chamber. Vorthak's visor flickered with an alert. Sudden spikes in Logan's biometric readings. His body temperature surged, his heart rate thundered, and his muscles swelled with unnatural tension. The commander's gauntlet pulsed, readying another surge of agony. But this time, Logan welcomed the pain. The creature within, chained by his will, rattled against its cage and cracks began to form. The cuffs flickered, their energy destabilizing as something inside him pushed back. The door slid open abruptly, and a subordinate officer stumbled in, his voice tight with panic. "Commander, the humans' vitals, they're adapting." Vorthak did not turn. "Fascinating," he murmured. Logan's head lifted slowly, his eyes burning molten gold for an instant. His voice dropped into something almost inhuman, guttural and cold. "You're out of time." The cuffs sparked wildly, struggling to hold what could no longer be contained. Logan's body trembled with suppressed power, the beast within straining against the last threads of his restraint. He forced himself to remain still, holding the eruption back by will alone. He wanted them to release him, because once they did, there would be no stopping the carnage. Vorthak straightened, a cold smile in his voice. "Then let us see what you truly are." He gestured sharply. The room's atmosphere thrummed with power as the containment field rose. Energy designed to trap anything organic, anything monstrous. He meant to force Logan's transformation, confident in the Empire's ability to crush anything he became. Logan felt the wave hit him, a searing lance through every cell, shattering the last of his chains. His lips pulled back from his teeth in a half-snarl, half-smile. "You wanted a monster," he growled, his voice thick with something ancient and wild. "You've got one." The air erupted with the sound of restraints failing, and alarms screaming, raw, primal, and deafening. And then silence. But in that silence, something terrible awoke. The room detonated into chaos. A thunderous crack split the air as Logan Kane's restraints shattered, sending molten shards of metal skittering across the floor. The power conduits lining the walls exploded in a cascade of sparks, plunging the chamber into a flickering twilight of crimson emergency lights. Logan dropped to his knees, his chest heaving, his skin rippling like liquid shadow. His bones twisted, cracking audibly, as the transformation surged through him. Thick cords of muscle swelled beneath his torn uniform, and his fingers elongated into claws, razored and black. His jaw extended, teeth serrated and dripping with predatory hunger. The once human eyes blazed golden, primal and cold. Vorthak stood motionless, his visor recording every detail. A lycanthrope, he observed, his voice heavy with curiosity rather than fear. A myth, made flesh. The subordinate officer beside him wasn't so composed. "Commander, orders?" His voice trembled, hand twitching toward his sidearm. The answer came from the beast. Logan moved. No, he vanished. The officer barely registered the blur before Logan's claws were through his chest. The man's armor split like paper, and with a wet, visceral crunch, Logan lifted the body and hurled it against the wall. The impact left nothing but ruin. Vorthak's armor adjusted, shimmering as a personal shield flared to life around him. Remarkable. Let's see if you are more than just teeth and rage. His gauntlet flared, and a pulse of raw kinetic force erupted toward Logan. The blast struck, sending Logan skidding backward, claws tearing molten furrows into the floor. But he didn't fall. His body, built for war and reborn for slaughter, absorbed the impact with a low, guttural snarl. Vorthak circled slowly, his stance measured. I've dissected creatures from 100 worlds. You are fascinating, but you are still caged here, beast. His voice held no tremor, only the cold certainty of control. And you will break. Logan's reply was a sound, deep, primal, and terrifyingly sentient, a growl that promised pain. The chamber's defense systems activated, walls hissing open to release sleek, quadrupedal sentinels. Mechanical hunters forged for pursuit and termination. Their optical sensors flashed, locking onto Logan's towering form. With a synchronized whir, they pounced, their limbs bladed and their jaws lined with plasma cutters. Logan met them in a frenzy of violence. The first machine lunged, its blades whistling through the air. Logan twisted, claws flashing upward, shearing through metal and servos in a shower of sparks. The second sentinel drove low, plasma jaws snapping. Logan caught it mid-leap, his monstrous strength tearing it in half. Fluid and flame poured from the wreckage. The third hunter struck from behind, embedding its plasma drill into his shoulder. Logan's snarl turned into a roar, and with a brutal backhand, he crushed the machine's core. His wound sealed almost instantly, steam rising as his body knitted itself together. The floor now littered with shattered sentinels, hiss from molten metal and pooling coolant. But Logan's eyes never left Vorthak, the real prey. Vorthak, unmoved, raised his gauntlet. Good. You endure. Now! Burn. The gauntlet's core flared, and the air itself ignited. Fire engulfed Logan, tongues of plasma searing and blinding. The chamber became a furnace, the temperature lethal to anything organic. But Logan was no longer simply organic. A silhouette moved through the inferno, slow, methodical. The firelight caught the glint of fangs, the sheen of claws, and the predatory curve of a smile. Then Logan spoke. His voice layered, human and inhuman, a harmony of predator and soldier. You call this fire? Let me show you something hotter. The blaze shifted. The plasma bent and curled, feeding into the beast rather than consuming it. Logan absorbed the heat, his body drinking in the devastation and transforming it into raw power. His eyes, now molten gold, locked on Vorthak. Then he struck. The impact shattered the air, and Vorthak's shield flared brightly, before fracturing under the sheer force of Logan's assault. The commander flew backward, crashing through reinforced walls into the adjoining corridor. Smoke and debris filled the air as the beast stalked forward, relentless. Vorthak's armor hissed, systems compensating for the catastrophic damage. He rose from the rubble, his voice cold but edged with something rare, excitement. Impressive. You've earned escalation. With a sharp command, the ceiling split open. From above, automated turrets emerged, and from the corridor, a squad of Imperial guards, hulking, gene-forged warriors, took formation, their weapons humming with lethal promise. Logan's muscles tense, but he didn't hesitate. He welcomed the numbers. The room detonated into combat. Turret rounds blazed through the air, but Logan was faster, a blur of claws and devastation. He struck like a hurricane, limbs sweeping through soldiers as if they were reeds before a storm. Armor crumpled, bones snapped, and screams filled the corridor. One guard, larger than the rest, charged with a seismic hammer. The weapon came down, only to be caught mid-swing in Logan's clawed hand. With a guttural snarl, Logan twisted in the hammer shaft and the soldier shattered. But Vorthak was already repositioning. His armor unfolded, revealing an array of crystalline spines, a weapon designed for molecular annihilation. He fired. The beam hit Logan dead center. For a second, the beast buckled. The attack didn't cut flesh. It unmade matter. Logan's ribcage vaporized, his heart exposed, his form flickering between man and monster. Pain, unimaginable and absolute, coursed through him. And in that agony, Logan smiled. He surged forward through the beam, his body disintegrating and rebuilding simultaneously. With a final, earth-shattering blow, he struck Vorthak, claws piercing through armor and into the alien's core. The weapon died. Silence reigned. Logan, half man, half monster, leaned in close, his voice a deadly whisper. You wanted to break me, but you've only fed the wolf. Vorthak's eyes, flickering with failing life, regarded him with something unsettling satisfaction. Good, the alien rasped. Then let them see you for what you are. From the ruined walls, the cold, unblinking lenses of surveillance drones hovered, transmitting the entire battle. Across the Empire, they would witness Earth's secret. Vorthak's body slackened, his voice little more than a hiss. The galaxy will fear you, but they will hunt you, too. Logan's claws slid free, and the body collapsed lifeless. He stood amidst the carnage, his breath heavy, his form shifting. Human and beast, soldier and predator. He turned his burning gaze to the cameras. Let them come. The galaxy erupted with chaos. The broadcast of Logan Kane's monstrous transformation had spread like wildfire through the Empire's networks. Fear and fascination gripped every system. The Emperor, his voice cold and absolute, issued a decree. The beast of Earth must be hunted, captured, or destroyed. They sent an armada. The cruiser Eclipticon, flagship of the Emperor's fleet, prowled through the darkness of the Outer Rim, its hull bristling with planetary-grade weaponry. Within its command center, Admiral Cork stood before a vast holomap of the sector. His eyes, cold and mechanical, tracked every anomaly. He's here, Cork said, his voice a rasp of circuits and disdain. The wolf thinks himself a predator. Let's show him the power of the pack. The ship's scanners pulsed. A single life form appeared on the abandoned moon below, a ruined, desolate sphere of craters and jagged mountains. Logan had chosen the hunting ground. Cork smiled without warmth. Deploy the hounds. The drop pod screamed through the atmosphere, hitting the moon's scorched earth with seismic force. From within emerged the hunters, elite biomechanical warforms, each designed from the DNA of the galaxy's deadliest predators and armed with plasma weaponry that could shatter tanks. Their neural links fed directly to Cork's command interface. He felt their senses, the heat of the cracked earth, the whisper of dust, and the rapid thrum of one singular heartbeat. Logan, the beast crouched in the shadows of a jagged ridge, his golden eyes scanning the terrain. His breath was slow, measured, his wounds from the battle with Vorthak long healed. But the memory of the Empire's cruelty burned within him, and his rage had only sharpened. A distant tremor. The pack was closing in. Logan sank low, his muscles bunching like coiled steel. His ears caught the faint, mechanical clicks of their scanning arrays, their footsteps masked but not to him. He waited, silent, unseen. The first hunter crested the ridge, its cybernetic eyes flaring as it locked onto his heat signature. A mechanical howl erupted from its throat, and it leaped, bladed limbs slicing through the air. Logan exploded upward. His claws met steel, carving through the predator's armor with the sound of shrieking metal. The machine writhed, screeching as Logan drove it into the earth with bone-crushing force. Sparks erupted, and the creature's core flickered and died. But the others were already on him. A barrage of plasma bolts seared the ground, and Logan darted sideways, a blur against the scorched terrain. The pack was relentless, attacking from every angle, teeth, blades, and fire. Logan twisted through them, his body a whirlwind of destruction. But they were fast, coordinated, and their strikes began to wear him down. From orbit, Cork watched the beast struggle with predatory delight. Good, he murmured. Bleed, wolf. It will make the kill sweeter. The largest hunter, twice the size of the others, charged with a seismic roar. Its limbs tipped with plasma-edged pikes Logan spun to meet it, his claws flashing. But the beast anticipated his strike. Blade snapped around Logan's arm, locking tight, and with a hydraulic hiss, the hunter ripped. A roar of agony. Logan's arm, severed, fell to the earth, his blood steaming on the scorched ground. The pack circled, their optics glowing with predatory satisfaction. Logan, breathing hard, staggered but did not fall. his remaining hand clenched into a fist, his eyes burning with something ancient, something unbreakable. His body began to knit, muscles weaving, bone forming. His severed limb regrowing with a sickening crackle of power. The hunters paused, their processors calculating the impossible. Logan's voice, deep and cold, cut through the air. "You think I'm cornered?" His lips peeled back, revealing ivory fangs. "You're the ones in my den." The moon trembled. Logan howled, a primal, resonant call that rippled through the ground and sky. The pack's optics flickered, their sensors scrambled by the sheer force of the sonic blast. Then the earth answered. From beneath the surface, shadows surged feral, monstrous shapes with eyes like embers. The Empire had hunted Logan, but they had not realized he wasn't alone. The moon had become a refuge for creatures forgotten by the galaxy, predators who recognized their alpha. The beast struck. Fangs, claws, and shadow enveloped the mechanical hunters in a hurricane of fury. Logan moved with them, a force of nature incarnate. The largest hunter met him again, pikes slashing, but Logan, his strength restored and amplified by the hunt, caught its limbs mid-strike. With a snarl and a savage heave, he tore the beast apart. The air was thick with the stench of burning circuits and blood. The pack was annihilated, their remains smoldering across the battlefield. Logan stood amidst the ruin, his breath steaming, his golden eyes turning skyward. A voice crackled through the air, Korik, speaking through the last surviving drone. "You've proven yourself a beast, Kane, but I hunt beasts for sport. Prepare for extinction." The sky above ignited as the Eclipticon's orbital cannon charged, a sphere of plasma forming, enough firepower to erase the entire moon. Logan, his body trembling, but his resolve unshaken, lifted his gaze. "You want to burn me out?" he growled, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "Then I'll make your fire my weapon." The cannon fired. The moon vanished in an inferno, its surface consumed. Korik, aboard the Eclipticon, turned from the burning ruin, his expression cold. "Target eliminated," he said flatly. "Set course back to." The sensors screamed. The plasma storm, instead of dissipating, shifted. The molten energy twisted, forged into a vortex, and at its heart a silhouette emerged. Logan Kane changed, his form incandescent, his body now an avatar of the inferno. His molten eyes burned straight into the bridge's camera. "You wanted a monster," he said, his voice layered with human and fire. "Now meet the alpha." Then he struck. The plasma he had absorbed unleashed from his body, and the Eclipticon, flagship of the Emperor, became a supernova. The explosion rippled through the void, and when the light faded, there was nothing but silence. And in the heart of that silence, Logan Kane remained. But he did not rest, because he knew the hunt was only beginning. The Imperial warship Dreadspire, a fortress of steel and death, loomed in the void. Within its core, Commander Vorthak stood alone in the command chamber, his eyes fixed on the swirling mass of wreckage where the Eclipticon once reigned. His jaw clenched. "So," he growled, his voice laced with cold certainty, "the wolf survived." The chamber trembled. A warning klaxon screamed. Vorthak's sensors flared as the beast arrived, not with subterfuge, but with fury. The hull shrieked, and in a molten flash, Logan Kane tore through the ship's armored bulkhead. Plasma fire rained around his molten form, his flesh still wreathed in the remnants of the Eclipticon's destruction. He landed with a seismic crack, claws raking the steel floor, eyes burning with primal fire. His voice, low and unrelenting, shook the air. "Vorthak, you wanted me. Now face me." The doors slammed behind Logan, and the walls around him pulsed with power. Energy barriers sealed the chamber, a killing arena forged by the Empire. Vorthak descended from his command throne, his every step a metallic echo. "You've caused quite the disturbance, Kane," he said, his voice glacial. "But chaos was always your nature. I am order. I am the end." Vorthak's armor, a fusion of obsidian plates and living nanite swarms, pulsed with crimson veins as he drew power from the ship itself. His gauntlet opened, summoning a crackling spear of antimatter. "You are a beast," he said, "and I am the hunter." Logan's lips peeled back in a blood-stained grin. "Then stop talking and hunt." The chamber exploded with violence. Vorthak struck first, his spear splitting the air with a shriek of annihilation. Logan twisted, the weapon grazing his ribs, vaporizing flesh but missing his heart. He surged forward, closing the distance in a blink. His claws met armor, and the room howled with the screech of tearing steel. But Vorthak's armor, living, shifting, caught Logan's strike, tendrils of nanites wrapping his wrist. With a crushing flex, Vorthak drove his knee into Logan's ribs, sending the werewolf skidding across the chamber, molten blood hissing against the floor. "Feral, predictable," Vorthak said, his spear humming. "You rely on brute strength, but I've evolved." Logan's body healed before Vorthak's eyes, bones knitting, burns sealing. But the commander was already on him, his spear thrusting with inhuman precision. Logan dodged and countered, his claws ripping through armor and nanites alike. Vorthak grunted, a spurt of dark ichor spilling as Logan's strike found flesh. But the wound closed instantly, the nanites sealing the tear. "Your regeneration," Vorthak mused, circling, "is impressive, but mine is superior. I am the Empire made flesh." Logan's voice was a growl from the depths of his chest. "You're not flesh. You're a puppet." He attacked, ferocious and wild, a hurricane of claws and fury. But Vorthak was the eye of the storm, his spear intercepting every strike, his counterattacks precise and punishing. Their battle became a symphony of carnage, each strike tearing the chamber further apart. Vorthak drove his spear downward, piercing Logan's shoulder and pinning him to the ground. The werewolf snarled, his claws raking, but Vorthak pressed his boot on Logan's chest, driving him down. "This ends," he said, raising his free hand, an antimatter cannon forming around his palm. "Goodbye, Kane." But Logan's eyes, burning suns, locked with Vorthak's. "No," he said, his voice a primal promise. "It begins." His claws ignited with a corona of searing heat, stolen plasma from the Eclipticon. With a deafening roar, he tore upward, severing the spear, sending molten shards into Vorthak's face. The commander reeled, nanites screeching as they struggled to repair the damage. Logan, his body broken but rising, advanced. "You call yourself evolved," he said, his voice layered with human and beast. "But you're just a parasite, feeding on power you never earned." Vorthak's damaged optics flickered, rage boiling. "You are nothing but an animal." Logan's lips curled into a grin that showed too many teeth. "Maybe, but I hunt in a pack." The chamber shuddered. From every crack and shadow, monstrous forms emerged. Not men, asterisk not allies, asterisk but creatures of the void, predators Logan had brought from the moon. Their eyes glowed with the same primal fire. He had answered the Empire's hunt by becoming the Alpha and calling the wild to his side. The pack struck. Vorthak fought, a whirlwind of death, his spear reforming, his nanites lashing out. He tore through the beasts, but for every one he felled, two more descended. And Logan, fury made flesh, fought at the heart of the chaos, his claws and teeth rending through armor and bone. The ship groaned. Plasma conduits ruptured. Fires consumed the walls. Vorthak, his armor shredded, his form flickering, lashed out, his nanites pouring into Logan's body, seeking to consume him from within. The werewolf howled, his veins burning with the invasive swarm. His skin blackened, his muscles convulsed. Vorthak's voice whispered through his bones. "You are mine now, my vessel, my—" But Logan's eyes ignited. "You made one mistake," he growled through gritted fangs. Vorthak's voice, distorted, echoed within his chest. "What mistake?" Logan's claws sank into his own chest, tearing through flesh and into the nanite core itself. His molten essence surged inward, burning through Vorthak's invasion with living fire. You tried to tame the Alpha. With a primal roar, Logan detonated, a shockwave of heat and energy obliterating the swarm, ripping Vorthak from his body. The commander's shattered form, stripped of armor, slammed against the wreckage. His nanites burned away, his body, now only flesh. The chamber ruined, the fires dying. And from the ashes Logan Kane stood, his fur blackened, his body smoking, his breath a storm. Vorthak, broken and mortal, gasped, his voice ragged. "What are you?" Logan's eyes, embers of defiance, met his. "I'm the nightmare you made, the beast you couldn't cage. And I," his claws gleamed, "am the end of your empire." With one swift motion, the Alpha struck, and Commander Vorthak, hunter and tyrant, fell. The flames consumed the chamber, and above, the dread spire, its core ruptured, began to collapse. Logan turned, his form a silhouette against the inferno. As the ship died, his voice, calm, certain, spoke into the dark. "Tell the Empire, the hunt isn't over.